Hello, I'm David R. Jones of the Community Service Society. Recently, Governor Pataki indicated his support for a proposal to require recipients of public assistance to reapply for state benefits when they've reached the 5-year time limit on federal welfare benefits. This is just one of the controversial issues being debated today about welfare. The entire subject of welfare reform is one of the most critical issues facing poor families in New York City, and a timely topic for today's edition of the Urban Agenda. In a moment, key members of the New York State Legislature will join us, but first let's meet two people on public assistance willing to share their stories, providing all of us a good sense of how recipients are feeling the effects of welfare reform.
When I was about 20, I had started having my children, and I was working. I got an apartment, and the apartment was one that my father and mother had gotten for me. And what happened was I had gotten behind in my rent because it was high. It was a 1-bedroom. It was, I think, $650. And I said, "Oh man, what am I going to do?"
I'm a former drug and alcohol abuser, and eventually, when I cleaned myself up, I went back to 2-year college, got my associate's degree, passed all the tests. They upgraded the qualifications, so I went back. Now I just graduated, got my bachelor's, and now I'm slated to take 2 tests, and hopefully I'll finally escape the system.
But now I want to get back on my feet. So I have a job as a security guard at Powers. I can't go all the time because I have no babysitter. So I went to public assistance and I told them that I needed childcare.
Because if you want people to get off welfare, you have to give them incentives. You have to say, like, we want you to make more money. We're going to give you a break. We're going to invest in you. We're going to allow you to make more money, bring home, more money. We're going to allow you to graduate off of welfare. We're not going to, like, kick you down,
I would like to work full-time with childcare. I need childcare so that I can work and stay off of public assistance. Without the childcare, I can't do it. It's just impossible. I have 3 kids. The oldest one is 11. He can't stay home by himself, or ACS to come and take them away from me. So in order for me to stay off of public assistance and continue to work full-time, I need the childcare.
It's about equality. We all, human beings, we should all be treated accordingly. That's my answer to it. I don't think, it's frustrating because I know, like, a lot of people have an idea that all welfare recipients are moochers. That's a lie. I know that, they're constantly struggling. They're like, they're your neighbors. You'd be surprised who's on welfare, who's getting food stamps, because they're forced to, or not because they want to.
I would like for me to have a different job, be more stable, things to be on time, like bills and stuff. I don't have to really worry about it. The kids be happy, and a bigger place in a more decent area, something in that manner.
I hope by that time that I'm given an opportunity, to move back in, to mainstream and start paying taxes. I don't mind paying taxes. I hear people crying about paying taxes. I would love to pay taxes, because when you consider the alternative, paying taxes, not paying taxes any day. Because that means you're able to provide for yourself. Simple as that. But basically, just to stay healthy, have my family healthy, just succeed. I don't want to be a millionaire. I just want to have a job and be productive and have a productive family, that's all.
Joining me now is New York State Assemblywoman Deborah Glick, whose downtown Manhattan district includes the communities of the Village, Soho, and Tribeca, and State Senator Raymond Meier, whose upstate New York's district includes Lewis County and perks of Herkimer and Oneida and St. Lawrence counties. Welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, how are you?
Well, I think the audience may be wondering, what are we all worried about here? We've, in the advocacy community, already know that we may have as many as 150,000 people who are losing their federal entitlements. As an Assemblywoman, are we prepared as a state from your point?
We've been concerned about what the localities, obviously the state provides funding, but it is the localities that in fact set up their own eligibility standards and interact directly with the clients. And so we have been concerned about the alleged seamless transition from federal assistance to safety net. We've had assurances from Brian Wing, who's the commissioner, that things are going to be handled very well, that they're working closely with counties. And he's a very decent man, and one wants to trust in what he has to say, but recently the city's director of the Human Resource Administration made statements about everybody having to reapply, which really sent shockwaves and is very disturbing, because we just don't think the city is prepared in any given month to handle 38 or 45,000 people reapplying.
Before we get into the city's issue, how much is this a statewide problem? I'm afraid, we get tunnel vision down here. But where is New York State from your point of view, Senator, in dealing with this issue? Clearly there are large numbers upstate as well.
Yeah, I think as Assemblywoman Glick correctly points out, the real day-to-day work of the social services programs in the state is handled at the county level. And I think what you're going to find is we have varying degrees of preparedness throughout the state. Upstate, I think because many counties had lower caseloads to begin with, they have been able to dig in. For example, in Oneida County, the county where I previously served as county executive, they have begun to review on an individualized basis some of the cases that will fall into the safety net. That's really what needs to be done before we hit the 5-year wall. My fear is that it's not being done in every county, and appears not to have been done in the city of New York.
Now, I think many of our viewers don't understand, other than the moral issue, why they should be concerned about this. So what happens in the state of New York once the time limits are over and all these people are off the rolls? How are they going to be supported, or what are they going to do?
Well, they'll fall from the Family Assistance Program, where there's federal participation, into what's called the safety net, and this will consist primarily of non-cash types of assistance. There'll be continuation of food stamps and of Medicaid and so forth. But I think part of the trepidation on the part of state legislators, on the part of Commissioner Wing, I think even he would say, and many local commissioners throughout the state, is we really are entering largely uncharted territory here.
Well, I think that it's not only that it's uncharted. I don't think there's enough information, and information that is accessible to the recipients at this point. People sort of know that they are going to hit a point at which there's going to be some change. I don't think they really grasp what that change will be and how it's going to be implemented. We already have, and I'm sorry I keep referring to the city, but obviously I represent city districts, right, and so I'm more familiar with that. We already have situations in which the administration has inaccurately provided people with information about what they are not entitled to.
Mm-hmm. This is all being played out against a not particularly robust economy. I mean, everywhere we're hearing more concerns. Would this impact this whole issue? Senator, maybe you should talk about that. The state of New York, particularly upstate, has not been exactly growing at a robust rate, even in the up times. How is this going to affect it all?
Well, once again, I think we have to be careful as we do this to sort out the fact not only that it's a big state, right, and you have different things going on in different communities, but among the people who are going to be going into the safety net program, we have people who are going into the safety net and have not been able to move from welfare for different reasons. Employment is going to be a part of the picture, and that's what you asked about, so right, let's look at that. In the part of the state where I live, for example, where I live in Oneida County, we are now experiencing a labor shortage. So it might not be so severe there. and other areas where we seem to be experiencing part of a national economic downturn, obviously it is more difficult. And employers, for legitimate reasons, not perniciously discriminatory reasons, do find that sometimes folks who move from public assistance are difficult employees, not because they're lazy but because work has not been in the habits of work, have not been part of their life experience.
As advocates, obviously, we complain a lot, so I'll be the first to admit. But one of the issues that we have, what should we be asking? You both have major leadership roles in your respective parties in shaping this policy. What should we be looking for in terms of a shift to handle this new crisis? I'll start with you.
Well, I think we need to take a step back and look that there have been, during this 5-year time period, there have been funds made available to provide for education and training and childcare. In many instances, it either has not yet been spent or it hasn't been spent perhaps to its best advantage, and we need to start spending that money to provide people with the capability of being independent. And that, as we've seen on that clip, childcare is a very big issue. An overwhelming number of people who are on the rolls are women. They have children, and they are expected to go to work, and every working woman knows that childcare is a major responsibility that is a daily challenge.
Senator, I think I get a sense of bipartisan support.
Yeah, I think, you know, as we talk about an impending crisis, let me say that I think welfare reform as a whole has been something that has changed our focus in a much more productive direction. Some 900,000 people are no longer on the rolls that were not there. Having said that, that doesn't go far enough. And what I think we need to concentrate now on, it is unreasonable to expect people for whom work has not been part of their life experience to spring immediately into full independence. And as Deborah just said, a large part of the population we're talking about are women with children. That means childcare. It means a number of other services. And we're exploring some ways legislatively to enhance that. I think when we finally get down to talking about a budget this year, we've got to look at a more intelligent use of the TANF dollars, and we've got to partner with the state agencies to get those dollars out the door. We in the legislature can appropriate, but that doesn't mean that it's getting programmed and spent.
Now the TANF dollars, just for information, would you explain? We talk in code, and I do it. I'm worse than
well, yeah, I try. I'm a lawyer, so maybe that explains part of it. The TANF is basically the so-called welfare surplus dollars. In other words, it is the money that the federal government used to send us before welfare reform, when we were basically dealing with entitlement dollars. So taking the base year of welfare reform at, I think it was 95, it is the difference between what we actually spend and what we spent there under the old entitlement. And the theory is to program those dollars now to help transition people from welfare to work, and also to work with people who, although not receiving public assistance, are low income or working poor.
We'll be back to continue our program right after this.
In America, you are not required to offer food to the hungry or shelter to the homeless. There is no ordinance forcing you to visit the lonely or comfort the infirm. In fact, nowhere in the Constitution does it say you have to provide anything for anybody. Thank you for all you've given. Imagine what more could do.
Welcome back to the CSS Urban Agenda. I'm David R. Jones. We are honored today to have with us New York State Assemblywoman Deborah Glick and State Senator Raymond Meier of upstate New York. Well, we should explain what you guys do in Albany. I think that's fair, and we'll start with Deborah. You're chair.
I'll be thrilled if Deborah can explain what we do in Albany.
But you're chair of the Social Service Committee in the Assembly. What does that mean in this process?
Well, it's a new assignment, and I'm very excited about it. Aside from the responsibility of each standing committee has to review legislation and, if necessary, make amendments before it gets passed along to the floor. The Social Service Committee is also very involved in looking at, from a budgetary point of view, how the dollars we have are spent to provide social services in a way that is helpful not only to the individual clients, but hopefully overall to the people of the state, because we move people along in a positive way.
And Senator, you represent the Senate side of this.
I'm Deborah's counterpart in the Senate, and she's explained it very accurately.
You're very nice for a Republican. I don't, you're destroying our viewpoint.
For a community activist, you're okay yourself.
Well, why should people be, I've been in this work for virtually my entire career. Why should ordinary New Yorkers be particularly concerned about how this plays itself out? I mean, we all want to be moral and everything, but is there any implications for the taxpayers and the soon-to-be taxpayers, as our clip said? Should we be concerned that if this doesn't work out in terms of the state?
Oh, absolutely. If you want to look at just money, just why should taxpayers care? We're going to lose federal assistance. That means the safety net program is paid for half by the state, half by the locality. That means a greater local burden. And I think humanly people have to be concerned about what happens when you have a significant part of the population that loses hope, loses connection to the rest of us. I think we all lose something there.
Deborah, do you?
Well, I would point out that the 5-year time limits includes an exemption for up to 20% of the individuals, because there are people who will never be able to provide for themselves, and that has to do with just the realities of human life, and that's always been true. And so we have an obligation under the state constitution to provide for people, and I would hope that the state would review carefully who really is incapable of providing for themselves, and to ask for a full exemption and to provide so that it isn't a burden to people of the state for those members of our society who can provide for themselves.
Now this is a particular concern this time, because the people who have hit their 5-year limits, some of us believe, are the ones with the most problems in terms of education and the rest. So this could theoretically be our most severely, difficult population.
As Ray had said before, there are clearly people who need their skills developed and have the ability to move forward. There are some who don't, and we have to just recognize that, and some of the work that we ought to be doing through the budget is providing for assessment services, and then case management where possible, and then making some of these determinations and providing for people who have various disabilities. Perhaps they should be on SSI, which is again a federal program for people who are disabled, and that sort of thing are the things that should be taking place now in advance of hitting that 5-year limit.
Now, Senator, we're unique, or among a unique set of states that actually does have a constitutional provision that makes sure that no one can become entirely destitute. This transfer over has become a source of some controversy now. How should it work? How should we pass over, in your view, from people who have hit their time limits into the state program?
But Article 17 of the state constitution, as you say, requires that we take care of the needy. By the way, authored by a Republican politician named LaGuardia. I think what we need to do, people, because they are on public assistance, are not necessarily should be treated as one group. And I really think the only way to get at the problem of those who remain on public assistance is to treat them as individuals and to examine on a case-by-case basis what are the barriers that we're dealing with here. And we're going to find Some folks belong on SSI because of disability. Others have drug or alcohol problems or psychiatric disorders, or it may be as simple as a lack of basic skills. And others, simply put, may be people who just don't want to cooperate and don't want to work. I suspect that is a very small minority, however.
Yeah, having met people in business and actually worked for a while as on a bank board, I think there's sort of an even distribution of people who don't want to work hard. And I'm starting to realize that. They go on all income levels.
In the New York State Legislature. Sure.
There's a controversy that's brewing. Obviously, the City of New York and Jason Turner, our HRA commissioner, has informed the state and the public that he intends to require everyone who is losing their entitlements to go through a full reapplication process. And in fact, the governor has been quoted as saying, well, we hope it's not, as an advocate, we hope it's not quite that bad. He sort of echoes and supports that view. Assemblywoman, how do you think that's going to play?
Well, when the governor made comments at a question and answer period, and my reaction to it was that I thought perhaps he hadn't been fully briefed on that aspect of the program. And I think that when Commissioner Wing has an opportunity to discuss what their plans are, that he will understand that the city has a very bad record on doing things in an expeditious fashion and reviewing people in a appropriate and efficient fashion. So I think that we'll have a step back, and they will have to begin, if they in fact want to review people. It's as if Jason Turner is acting as if they haven't been under severe scrutiny. People have been under rigorous review, and so I think that this is an overstatement of a need.
Now, there's a logistical problem here, of course, that I think the estimates, again, from the advocates are that even if they started today to try to do this evaluation, that there's just too many people. But, Senator, how do you see it? I know that you have a...
Well, you know, speaking for myself, I can't speak for the whole Senate majority, but if by a reapplication process they mean that everyone's going to be terminated when we hit a certain date and then have to get back on if they're eligible, I'm opposed to that. I mean, that will create chaos, both for the employees within the system and for people who need assistance. If by reapplication they mean that we're going to get serious about examining the lives of individual people to determine what we can do to move them from assistance, that's a great idea.
Well,
what apparently, and I can take the editorial page from the Daily News, since Richard Schwartz, who was the editorial chief, was the architect of the city's welfare plan originally, he said it's a great idea because they're going to have 60 days. Well, I know that they cannot accomplish that task in a 60-day time period. And so on the face of it, it would be laughable if it didn't have the potential for dire consequences.
Well, it sent a chill, obviously, through us in the advocacy community because Jason Turner has been very disappointed that he's not able to apply what's called family sanction. In other words, if someone fails to submit their paper, not only does the individual lose their benefit, but the entire family loses their benefit automatically. And there's some theory that that may be available now. Have you heard this, or are you...
Well, I know that is it reapplication, is it assessment, and the
right.
terminology does matter, and the devil is always in the details in these things. I am awaiting response from Commissioner Wing on exactly how the state is going to view the city's statement and what their plans are and what they are going to do to oversee how the city implements this. Obviously, it is not going to be an appropriate approach to have everybody reapply within a 60-day time period. They can't handle the work, and it's ridiculous. Senator,
a final comment before we have to conclude?
Well,
it doesn't have to be on this. But.
No, just I think, as I say, I think if they're just talking about cutting everybody off and then we're going to sort everybody out in a 45 to 60-day time period, that's not going to work. We do need to review these. I think we need to look, though, overall at welfare reform. The most productive change has been that we don't just consign people to living in dependency forever. We make a mistake, however, if we think that because we've enacted welfare reform, everybody's going to work tomorrow. It's a gradual process.
My thanks to Assemblywoman Glick and State Senator Meier. No matter what side of the ideological spectrum you're on, by January 1st, 2002, only a few months from now, over 100,000 people statewide will be losing their federal welfare entitlements. Our guests have just talked about some of the plans and challenges which lie ahead. We'll keep you posted on the developments. I'm David R. Jones of the Community Service Society. Thank you for joining us for the Urban Agenda.
To comment on the Urban Agenda or for more information on CSS, contact Community Service Society of New York, 105 East 22nd Street, New York, New York, 10010. Area code 212-254-8900.